All right, now we'll start the general revision for paper 1 from this practice book. Now, the first page is about the content and the weightenings of each section, but I'll just skip this. You can pause and have a look later on. Now, first section is about some properties of algebra that we have searched. Exponential laws, how you distribute the power, what happens when there is fraction, when it is power to the power. So those are some rules and a few examples on the right side, like how do we apply when there is power, how do you open the brackets when there is this power, when there is fraction. So it's quite useful that you can have a look. And there are some other examples in the second page, like for example, 1 over x to the power of 4 is written x to the power of negative 4. We already know this, like when, for example, in calculus, we use this. But if there's a coefficient 3, 3 stays in numerator. If the whole thing is the power negative 4, then the whole thing goes in numerator. So those examples, please give some time and have a look in this section as well. With the search, there are square roots, cube roots. Now, calculator can be used, but if the roots are same, then we can combine them when we multiply or when we divide. But for plus and minus, we cannot do nothing much. Like root 2 plus root 3 is root 2 plus root 3. But if it is product, multiplication, we can combine them. All right, now, the questions, there's always this first question where we have a quadratic equation. We can factorize, that's okay. However, using quadratic formula, we may get the same answer, but then, especially in the first questions, there is 1 mark for the factors, writing factors. And in that regards, if we use calculator and get answer -2 and 1 over 3, we still have to write, we should be able to write the factors after the answers, finding the answers. It's still possible. Like if we have x is equal to -3, so we can write x plus 1 should be a factor, and x is equal to 1 over 3, and we can have the other factor as 3x minus 1. You see, it is even possible if we are using quadratic formula and finding the answer, because as you see here, writing factors is 1 mark. Now, there will be questions, definitely we will be using quadratic formula, and it's just substituting into formula and getting the correct answers with 2 decimal places. So that's over there. With the questions, there you have exponents. You see, when there is plus or minus, what do you see? We must use common factor. So we must have, and how do you take the common factor? Common factor with the smaller power. Okay, so which one is smaller? 2 to the power of 2013 is smaller. You see, so it's 2 to the power of 2039. Okay, so when you take it as a common factor, then what is inside left? We can double check is it correct while thinking like if you open the brackets, what would you get? And the one in denominator, there is another rule, because 4 is replaced with 2 square. And because it is power to the power, then 2016 becomes 1006 becomes 2012. And then they will cancel each other. It is 2013 and 2012. When you subtract, there is only 1 left. And that's 4 plus 1 is 5. So we got the final answer. It's a good question to practice and remember the relations and identities with the exponents. Now, a similar question with the search can be asked in this way. This is one of the past papers. Again, the same idea. When there is plus or minus, what we will do, we will have the common factor. That's always, we must think about that because we can't combine them other way around. And then again, with smaller power, let's say with the smaller one. And which one is smaller? 2012. So when you take that as the common factor, as you see in this step, so it is 2012. What is left behind? It was 14, and 7 squared minus 1. Denominator is still same. So that is 49 minus 1 is 48. Divided by 12 is 4. and is 7 to the power of 12, because it is inside square root, it comes out as 7 to the power of 1006 and times 2. So there you have A, B values, because A is not a multiple of 2. See, because why we have that? Because the answer is 2 to the power of 7, 2 times 7 to the power of 1006, isn't it? It is same as 14 times 7 to the power of 1005. You see, I can take 1 7 from 1006 to next to 2. However, we cannot accept this second option. Why? The question says A is not divisible by 7. So I cannot take A as 14. That's a mistake. So the first one is what we accept. Okay. Simplify without use of calculator. It's again because what do we see? It is the roots, so we can combine them. So we can combine them. That's nothing is wrong. It's 3 times 48 will be 120, 144 is going to be 144, and which is 12 square. It comes out as 12. So we can get this 12 just combining the surds. That's okay. And in the fraction part, 4 is 2 square, but remember the 2 square power will be multiplied by 2. It's x plus 1. It becomes 2x plus 2. Then we can subtract 2x from 2x plus 2. So you only have 2 left. And then 12 minus 8 will be 8. That's not, yeah, there is another way. The second solution is already there. Now, whenever there are questions with exponents now, we can think of using K method here. Like, okay, because of that negative, it's important, and that's positive. See that negative, because of that negative, we are going to take this in denominator. So we can actually rewrite this equation like that. I have 3 to the power of x plus 15 over 3 to the power of x is equal to 8. You see, it is this one. All right, then how can we use K method? I'll just substitute with K. It is same as solving K plus 15 over K is equal to 8. And we'll solve for K times everything by K. K squared plus 15 is equal to 8K. So you put everything one side. So we'll get K squared minus 8K plus 15 is equal to 0. So we will have the factors of K minus 5 and K minus 3. So we'll get 3 and 5. But 3 to the power of x is 3, 5, and 3 to the power of x is 3. So from these two, can just go from that step here. And obviously 3 to the power of x is 3. Then we have a nice answer. But the other one, we'll be using log. Just be careful. How do we use log to find the power? Okay. Now, yeah, whenever there is a surd equation, so we have to leave surd alone. That's like the first step. And then what we do, we square both sides. Okay, fine. Just be careful when we are taking square of that part. And don't forget, finally, check your answers. Because one of the answers, most of the time, that we have to remove. And that's a separate mark. So we must specifically say, okay, this is my only answer. For the questions when you have search. Okay, don't forget checking your answers with the questions involving search, with the equations involving search, square roots. Now, inequalities, what we should remember, just solve as you have x squared plus 2x minus 24 is equal to 0. So the answers will be are critical values. So CV. Okay, and like we should just get answer is -6 or answer is 4. But you should never say it is more than this, more than that straight. Just be careful. Now, sometimes it is less than, sometimes it is in between, because there are 3 parts. Like I have the section x is less than -6. Then I have the section x is between -6 and 4. Okay, let me write it down there. So this section is x is between -6 and 4. And then I have the part x is more than 4. And that is how we write that. If it is equal in the equation, yeah, I can have them all equal. That's not a problem. So I have these two parts, but these three parts. But what happens? Less than 6 and more, less than -6 and more than 4 comes together, and the other part in between -6 and 4 is the other part. So depending on what we are looking for. So what we are looking for, how do we know which option are we going to say? So let's say this is option 1 or option 2. So we should never just say more than -6, more than 4 because of this is more. Okay, the question is more. What do we do? Okay, because this is parabola, you can think about happy face. Happy face. And those answers, the critical values are basically our x-intercepts. We can just draw this thing. And what can we say after drawing that, the inequalities section? We can, okay, that's happy face. So because this happy face and I have those critical values, what am I looking for? More than. See, more than means above. So I will be choosing above. So when it is above, before that intersection and after the second. So it is basically before -6 and after 4. That's my fine. I will choose that option 1. I'm not choosing in between. If the question would say less, I will choose that second option. Okay. Or if it were set phase, you know, if it could be negative. So we can work normally as if we were just solving an equation, but the answers are our critical values and we have to decide either less than or in between or more than. So that two comes together, or the middle part comes as a separate part section. Okay. Now, simultaneous equations, we are getting through the end. There are always questions with simultaneous equations. It can be two linear equations or one linear, one quadratic. So we have a linear equation. In the linear equation, we leave x or y alone, whichever is easier, and then substitute into the quadratic one, and we'll solve for it. So the two answers is not just the answer that we have to stop, because for each x or each y, we must find corresponding y, x or y as well. Like for y is equal to -1, if you substitute into the linear equation, x will be 1. Okay. Now this question could come with exponents as well. This is actually an exponential equation. But what's the relation? If the bases are same, which is like 3 and 3, then we can just say the powers are same. So we can basically write x minus 10 is equal to 3x. So we'll solve for x nicely, and then we can use this x to solve the next equation. Sometimes it will be a linear equation in the first one, and like the previous question, we will substitute into quadratic and solve it. And nature of roots. Nature of roots is when the quadratic equation is written in standard form. Okay, it must be in standard form, and we should be able to define what is A and what is B and what is C. Then that's our quadratic formula. Is the quadratic formula. The thing inside square root is our discriminant, and depending on that, we may not have a solution. Remember, because even when you are drawing a parabola, it may not have any x-intercept. There is turning point, there is always y-intercept, but x-intercept, so it is possible that you may not have any x-intercept. So just like that, that happens when nature of roots, this thing, that's what we say, is negative. No real solution. So if it is equal, then we have equal solutions, perfect square. If it is more than 0, then we have real solutions. Two intercepts, two x-intercepts. But we can get questions. Such questions we may be using if there's already a graph drawn or we already draw that, we can use diagram. But if it is just the function given, and f of x plus is equal to g of x plus k, you know what? It will be better just to substitute these values. Like, what is my f of x? Okay, that's my f of x. I can open the brackets and write it. And what's my g of x plus k? It is 3 plus k. That's my g of x. Okay. So I'll be just solving this. Now, two unequal roots means, two unequal roots. It's about discriminant being positive. So it's now I have to find out, because this is b squared minus 4ac. I just should make sure what is b, what is a, what is c. And then when I substitute this correctly, I will find possible k values. Okay, it is solving that equation. That's nature of roots. So we can understand because of that roots in you, it's like a keyword, nature of roots. Okay, there's an example. If one solution is given, see, this is a bit different question we can say, but if this is one of the solutions, obviously we can just consider when we apply into quadratic formula, we must get b squared minus 4 is 41. So I know what? I already know what is my a. A is equal to 1. And I already know what is my b. B is equal to minus 5. And c is the question. So since b squared minus 4ac is 41, then since I already know what is a and what is b, it is just c is missing, and we'll find it from there. All right, now misconceptions, the last and important part. We may have losing marks rounding off. So if the answer is 0.91 when you plug this thing in calculator, and if you write 0.90, once off, your marks will be deducted, penalized. So be careful you are substituting incorrectly, and be careful in rounding off. And simultaneous equations, that's another misconception or common error. You can just find x value and forget finding y, or you just find y and forget finding the other one. So that, again, you just lose marks just like that. And yeah, this one we just mentioned, if you forget checking your answers or canceling one of the solutions, that could be an error. But here it states something else. We will square both sides. That's so nice. But then how you square both sides is important. The square of x plus 2 is not x squared plus 4. Just be careful. If you are having difficulty, you can write x plus 2 times x plus 2 and find it x squared plus 4x plus 4. That's supposed to be. And then learners fail to standardize equations. So yeah, leaving x alone or writing in standard form could be a problem sometimes. So then your substitution will go wrong. Mishandling signs. Yeah, that's a very common major problem, like plus minus mistakes, especially when you are using in quadratic formula. If you will square b, if you are going to write b squared, and for b is equal to a negative number, learners usually get, like, let's say for b is minus 3. What will it be? It will be square of minus 3. You have to write brackets. You see, because if you write minus 3 squared, that will give you minus 9, which is wrong. That's what we don't want. The calculator gives the wrong answer because you forget writing brackets. So this can be done in finance question, maybe in number pattern questions, whenever you forget, writing brackets. Solving inequalities, yeah, just be careful with the signs. If you are multiplying or dividing with a negative number, the direction of signs should change. So you can't keep it like that. If it is more than, then it becomes less than. Because you are multiplying or dividing with a negative number. Now, solving quadratic, make sure that the standard form, okay, when solving simultaneous equation, always calculate both x values, rounding off, surds and fractions, taking common factor. Okay, these are the other tips. Examination questions. Then it comes to some possible past paper questions here. I'll just show them so you can pause and have a look for your later references. So we can say that's fine for this.